Hello, welcome to the stream. Hope you're all doing well today. Today we will talk about Sail, and Sail is a new CLI tool for developers, DevOps, geeky people essentially who love to get their hands dirty with the terminal, and it allows you to provision and deploy, manage WordPress applications on DigitalOcean. I'll do a quick overview of most of the features built with Sail. We'll do a quick demo. Most of the commands, I'll try and see if we can get the domain stuff working as well. I registered domain this morning. The DNS should propagate shortly, but we'll take a look at that as well. So yeah, let's get started. So Sail is free and open source. You can find it on GitHub, and installing it is a breeze. Actually, it's available on Homebrew, which is I think my favorite package manager because it gives you access to software especially on Mac OS and Windows, which you wouldn't have access to otherwise, just because of the complexity of the dependency management and things like that. So if you're on Linux, like PyPy probably would be your best source for Sail, especially if you're like comfortable with Python, virtual environments and things like that. But for the majority of use cases, Homebrew will probably be the best option. Let me see if I can get this. You can brew install Sail. It'll get all the stuff. And wow, that was quick actually. And it works. The latest version is 0.9.12. But we do ship updates quite frequently, maybe once a week, sometimes more often. So once you install Sail, you will need a DigitalOcean account. Sail works with your own DigitalOcean account. So you have to get one. I have a test account that I'm gonna use. I don't even need to code it though, I think. If you don't have a DigitalOcean account, just go to digitalocean.com and sign up. I think they give you like $100 worth of credits, which you can use for about 60 days. So you can try it out for free. I think mine is gonna be real quick. Good work. You can reset the password, it's just a test account anyways. Not being used for anything. While we wait for the email, so for Sail, you'll need the DigitalOcean API token for Sail to work with your DigitalOcean account, and that's the one you can get from your DigitalOcean dashboard. But essentially you're going to use it within it like this. It's called the provider token in Sail. But you can also configure like kind of like a system-wide provider token. So if you're planning to do multiple projects with Sail, instead of entering the provider token every single time, you can just do something like Sail config provider token, and then enter the token here, and then it will be used for every time you invoke Sail init. That provider token will be used. I'm not getting the email for some reason. It's fine. I can use a different. Doesn't matter. I can use this account. So what you want to do is you're gonna go to PI tokens and keys, and then you're gonna hit generate new token up here. Make sure it's read write token. You can give it any name that you want, and you hit generate token, and it'll generate a token. The token itself is right here. So we're gonna copy this and just put it in a safe place for now. I am not going to use this token because I have an existing token that I'm going to use. Actually, we can use it, it's fine. It's probably not the best idea. So this token is essentially what you're going to enter here at provider token, or is the token that you're going to use with Sail init provider token. That's the token I'm going to use. But this one here, I'm going to delete it just to make sure that nobody accesses, because this is an account with existing active production apps. The email. But yeah, anyway, so Sail init. So you're gonna want to make a new. I think I have a directory called example. Oh no, I don't. You're gonna have to create a new directory, make sure it's empty, and then just do Sail init to initialize a new project with Sail. Oh, this is probably not gonna work because I have a local configuration, but this should work now. So this is essentially going out to the Sail API, and the Sail API is then provisioning a new droplet on DigitalOcean, and it's installing all the necessary software, Docker images and whatnot, and doing the primary configuration. Usually takes up to a couple minutes. Sometimes it's quicker. It's weird. This thing works. Let's see if I can. Yeah. Okay. So I have two droplets here, but this is the one that was is being provisioned right now. This is the new one. This I can probably delete. This. So this is my test account. I was able to get in. API tokens. Here's the only token that I'm using. Again, it has to be a read-write token. They need to be able to create servers and domains and DNS records and stuff like that. Taking a bit longer than usual today, not sure why. Let me just check the logs real quick on the server. Leave this here for now. Let's just do another one and see what happens, because I think this is stuck for some odd reason. Let's see what happens here. By the way, and in Sail Init, you can also provide the size of the droplet that you want to provision and the region, which defaults to Amsterdam. So if you want to provision in a US based data center or somewhere else around the world, just give it a different region. You can do Sail regions to get a list of all of them. Oh, I think there might be a problem with the DigitalOcean API, I'm not sure. Maybe that's the... This is a... Or it's just being slow, I'm not sure why it's so slow. So Sail regions, you get a list of regions, and then Sail sizes. You get a list of available droplet sizing and their price and short description. But the default is I think it's the smallest, or like next. I think it's this, either the Intel or AMD. One of these is the default, just because they're a tiny bit better, and the $1 is definitely worth over the super smallest instance. But let's try again. Let's see what happens. Let's say limit again. Yeah, this seems to be working. This, oh wait, this is also working. Oh, we'll have 2 sites. It's usually much quicker, but fine. Okay, so provisioning is done here, and now it's pulling all the application files from production, and there we go. So here's the site. It's a brand new vanilla WordPress site. There's the access credentials, which are automatically generated. Admin. So I can get into WP admin, and yeah, so this is basically it. This is what init does. It creates a vanilla WordPress site, which I can start using almost immediately. We had to wait a bit today, but yeah. So after provisioning a site, it really depends on like how you want to approach this. Like, it really depends on the workflow that you're aiming for. And for most like small-ish sites and projects, especially for sites where you're the only developer working on, you know, you'll just use WP admin to, you know, to do things like install plugins and themes and keep them updated. And then in larger projects, especially when there are like multiple developers involved, you will want to use a source code manager like Git or Subversion, and then set up deploys using that rather than just deploy directly from Sail. But we'll get to that later. I'll probably do a quick demo of doing it with Git and GitHub Actions, probably later today. But right now, let's install a plugin. Let's say you know, Classic Editor, one of my favorites. It's been installed. You can activate it. So now we have a plugin here. But in here, in our Sail directory, we've pulled down the files earlier during init. It just pulled down the WordPress core files. But if you go to WP content, let's try and make this a little larger so that y'all can see. In WP content plugins, it's empty. There's just a Kismet there and Hello Dolly plugin. There's no classic editor. So in your local working copy, you'll have to make sure that it's in sync with production when you do things like install and update plugins, themes, or core files in production. And when that happens, you'll want to do Sail download to pull them back to your local working copy. And an interesting flag here is dry run, which basically shows you what changed, what are the files and directories that are about to be downloaded if you were to run Sail download without the dry run. So as you can see here, we have the classic editor plugin that is going to be installed. And if I say delete the Kismet and I run download dry run again, it'll tell me that, okay, these are the deleted files. There's classic editor. These files are going to be added to my working copy, and these files are going to be deleted from my working copy. And if I run without the dry run flag, you'll see that classic editor is here and Akismet is still here. And this is intentional. And if you run dry run again, you'll see that it's still showing that Akismet is going to be deleted. but this is intentional because download it tries to be a bit safer by trying to not delete your local files, because oftentimes you'll be working on, you know, say mkdir new plugin that I'm working on .php, right? We have a new directory and a new file, and if you run the dry run again, you're working on this locally, remember, you will see that these are also in the deleted section because these do not exist in production yet. And so to safeguard from this, sail download doesn't do any deletions by default. But if you do want to delete, you'll just run it with the delete flag. And then delete will actually, in my case, it'll delete the new plugin that I wrote, and then a Kismet, because I deleted it here in the plugins as well. So that's download. And similar to download, there's a command called sail deploy, and it has pretty much the same flags as download except the delete flag. But sail deploy basically copies all the files that you have in your working copy and pushes them out to production in an atomic way. So if I say, let me do a quick edit of, say, WP config and say die, echo hello the time, and die. So this changes in WP config right now. If I run sail deploy dry run, it'll show me that WP config is going to be updated on production. And if I run it without the dry run flag, it will probably break my site, because that's what I did in WP config. So an interesting feature in Sail is rollback. So if you did a deploy that broke your site, you can quickly roll back to a previous deploy. So if you just run Sail rollback, you will get a list of available releases, and this one is the current release, so this is what's live on production right now. Then you can Sail rollback with a specific release number, which are generally just timestamps, to quickly roll back to a previous version. So I'm gonna roll back to 1337, and this will just change the symlinks on the server essentially, so my site should be back to normal. And if I go to Sail rollback again, you'll see that this is the current release. So this also doesn't affect my working copy. So if I look at WP config, you'll still see that the two lines here that broke my site earlier are still in my working copy. And now if I want to get these, if I want to get this fixed from production, I can just Sail download. Again, if I do dry run, it's gonna tell me that WP config has changed. And if I download it, I'll see that the two lines that broke my site are now gone. So that's uploading or rather deploying and downloading. And one more thing worth noting here is working with uploads. So uploads on the server are stored in a different directory. They're not stored with the releases. And so whenever you download or whenever you deploy, by default, it's not going to touch any of the uploads, because usually when you're deploying something to production, you don't want your local uploads to go out to production. Production will have their own uploads, and similarly, every time you do a download, you don't want to pull the several gigabytes of JPEGs and whatnot back to your local development environment. So by default, sail download and sail deploy will ignore the WP content uploads directory. However, there is a with uploads flag which instructs sail to do parse the uploads directory, and we can test it right now. So if I go to media, I go to add new, select files, the DigitalOcean logo, and there it is in production. So it's WP content uploads, PO logo vertical blue. So if I want to pull that down from production with sail download, I need the with uploads flag, and then I can find it. Content uploads, and there's my file. Three of them actually. And similar with deploys. So if I say delete the entire 2021 directory, I can sail deploy with uploads, and this will also delete the 2021 directory in production. So this will probably be a broken image right now. Here we go. So this is deploying, rolling back, and downloading. Let's move on to domains. Let's work with domains, because by default, when you sail init, you will get this temporary cryptic looking sail.io subdomain, which you can use for development purposes, but usually you will want your own domain, and that's where sail domain comes in. And sail domain uses the DigitalOcean DNS platform to add domains and work with DNS records, and it also uses Let's Encrypt to request and install SSL certificates for domains that you own. So as I mentioned earlier this morning, I registered a domain called saildemo.com, I think. Okay. So the domain name servers have to be set to the DigitalOcean name servers if you are going to have DigitalOcean manage the DNS for you. So I've done that for my saildemo.com domain, and I am gonna add it to my sail project. It's sail domain add. So adding domain, adding DNS zone. So if you go to my DigitalOcean account and go to networking domains, you'll see that sail has added this domain here with the A record pointing to the virtual machine, to the droplet for that particular sail application. So now if I list my domains again, domain list, you'll see that there's my internal domain, which is currently set as primary, and there's also saildemo.com. I can also probably add www, because people still tend to sometimes type www. So add that as well, updating DNS record, and you'll see that Sale has added a www DNS record pointing to the same IP address. Now, I can make this domain primary because right now the application, the WordPress site, will still work with the internal sale.io domain. So after adding a domain, you'll probably want to make it primary. But before I do that, I'm gonna try and make it HTTPS. So it's make HTTPS saledemo.com, and I'll also request a certificate for the www version. Have to agree to the Let's Encrypt terms of service. Gonna request certificates. Sometimes this doesn't work immediately because DNS changes take time to propagate. For new domains, it usually works fairly quickly. But for existing domains, you're gonna have to wait a few hours, usually for Let's Encrypt to pick up the change and to be able to verify that the domain is actually pointing to your server. Okay, so generating Nginx configs, requesting certificate, SSL certificates installed. And if I do a list right now, I will see that these are now both HTTPS. So there's a certificate installed for them, but this is still my primary domain. Now, if I want saledemo.com to be my primary domain, I'll do sale domain, make primary, saledemo.com. And this will essentially run a search and replace throughout the WordPress database and change the current domain to the to saledemo.com across all WordPress posts and comments and metadata and whatnot. And if I go to the homepage now, it's going to change to saledemo.com. And we do have a valid SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt. And once you do request and install an SSL certificate, it'll renew every, I think, like 30 or 60 days automatically. There's like a cron job running on the server, which will renew the certificate, assuming the domain is still pointing to that server. Okay, so now we're on saledemo.com. I'll probably have to log in again because the domain changed. And I don't remember my password. I could go and look it up over here. Or what I could do is I could sale WP. So this is basically a proxy to WP CLI running on the production server. So if I do user list, I'll get a list of users on the server, and I can do WP user update, my email address, user pass, and also I want it changed to admin. And now I can log in using the password admin. So that's domains and SSL. Next, we're going to talk about backups. I think. Let me just go through some quick questions on YouTube. Christian asked, hi, are there any plans for storing sites in a mounted drive, not in a fixed folder on the main drive? Thinking of a way to store lots and lots of sites in the server. Mounted drive, I think, I'm not sure DigitalOcean has I know Linode has like block storage. I think DigitalOcean should have block storage as well. block store. Yeah. So sure, what you can do, and I will speak about this a little bit later. But what you can do, since this is your own DigitalOcean account, and you do get root access to the server, what you can do is just go to your droplet and you know, add a volume to it, and you know, you can add, you know, a terabyte for $100 per month. And it'll also give you the ability to automatically format and mount it. You can do that manually, but then on the server itself, you will have to, you know, transfer the files from probably like the best way would be like Symlink. I'll show. I can show the directory structure quickly over here. If you do sail SSH, you'll see that there are basically 3 directories, or rather 2 directories in var www. One of them is uploads. It's where we store all the files, all the entire media library. And then releases is where you get, like, every time you deploy something, there's going to be a directory in releases, and by default we keep the latest 5 releases, which you can quickly roll back to. And so thinking of ways to store lots and lots of sites on a single server. So what I think is going to happen with those sites is that the uploads folder is going to be the bottleneck for storage there. So the uploads folder will then have to be moved to the volume that you attach on DigitalOcean. So you can have a $5 instance, a $5 DigitalOcean droplet, and then, you know, a terabyte of storage, or even more. I'm pretty sure you can add more. You can do like 5 terabytes, probably, like 50, maybe not 50. Then you can do 10 terabytes. And then you can either mount it at var www uploads, and that way Sail will just push everything to that single uploads directory. Or you can mount it anywhere you want and then have uploads be a symlink to that directory, and that'll probably work. I'm not sure. It should work. But I think, like, if I were doing it, I would just mount the entire volume directly here as uploads. That way you get to write directly to it. Not sure about makes sense then. Yeah, no worries. I'm not sure about like NFS stuff. Like if you wanted to do NFS, you could also do that. And I believe that, I haven't tested, but I have a feeling that these volumes, they do work as NFS mounts. I'm not sure though. I know Amazon's EFS works as NFS mounts, which under the hood is essentially like a bunch of hard drives for redundancy and high availability, then mounted over a protocol over NFS with the ability to you know, ping different hosts to make sure that the data is going to the one that is not dead. I'm not sure how volumes work. Maybe they work like that, or maybe they're like single instance volumes, like Windows volumes. Not sure. Judging by the name, I think, like, because they're not file systems, they're actually volumes. I think they're single droplet or single VM mounted, not multiple. Anyway, let's move on to backups. And this is this is quite interesting. So let me get out of here to the, just go into my main directory here and run sale backup. And this will just grab everything I have in production, and it will create a complete full site backup in a directory called backups on my local machine. Now, obviously this is not very useful by itself, especially since we're running this on like not on a server but like on a workstation. But you could run sale on a different, like on an offsite server somewhere, and have a cron job that just runs sale backup every day or twice a day or whatever, and then deletes the outdated backups. You could do that. But mainly, like, the simplicity behind backups in sale is just the ability to quickly just get an entire archive. And you can look inside the archive, you'll see that we have the oh, this is not very useful. Let's just extract it then. You'll see that there's the uploads directory with all your uploads, then the www directory, and then the database in a separate database.cldb file. So this is in every single upload, or in every single backup rather. I don't think there are any backup. I think there are any flags. Yeah, so backup doesn't have any flags. For restore, so you can, once you've backed something up, you can do a complete restore of that specific backup with sale restore. And right now it has to be in this very specific format. So sale doesn't have to guess like where your uploads are, where the document root is, and where the database is, because oftentimes, like, some people will put the database inside their www folder and call it like backup.sql or export.sql or wordpress.sql, whatever, which is a huge security problem. So sale is, with sale restore, restore is expecting the archive to be in a very specific format, which is the www folder for the document root, uploads for your WP content uploads, and database cldb for the database dump. Worth noting that sale restore is not atomic. It simply overwrites whatever you currently have in production in the latest release. So after a sale restore, you will most often want to sale download to make sure that your working copy is clean and is in sync with production. But yeah, sale restore would not, like, it's not a very useful feature. It might be useful when you're trying to restore a WordPress project from one server to another one. That would be the best use of sale restore. But otherwise, if you're, you messed something up, if you deleted a plugin, or if you installed something that you shouldn't have, or even if you corrupted your database, and we will get to some database commands later, your best course of action would be to use sale deploy, like to fix things locally and then sale deploy. Or if it's an application code problem that you recently deployed, as I shown earlier, you can use sail rollback to just, you know, quickly and very efficiently just roll back to a previous release. But yeah, sail restore is there if you need it. And Cldb, also very useful. So my personal favorite, Cldb CLI. So this just gives you access to the MySQL or MariaDB shell in production. So this is me querying the production database. I wanted to drop a table, but I'm not. I haven't done an import to drop a table. So what I can do is Cldb export. So this will export the production database again into my backups folder locally, and it's there as a SQL.gz file. And now I can go and Cldb CLI. I can drop table WP options. Yeah. Like to break my site today. One or more database tables are unavailable. So we drop the options tables and Cldb import, backups, and then the file name. So Cldb import is a bit is a bit less demanding to like structure. You can basically import any .sql or .sql.gz file to production. Doesn't necessarily have to be in your backups folder. It can be in your, I don't know, migrations folder or whatever you're doing. And this is very useful for when you're migrating existing websites to a sail project. You will usually, like, whatever host you're currently with, they'll give you a backup of, you know, application files and uploads, and you can just put them in here on your file system, and then you will usually have a backup file with the database dump, like in .sql format or in .sql.gz. And so with sail DB import, you can import that particular database file to production. So that's database. Let's go over a couple interesting other commands. So sail SSH. I've shown these. I've shown this briefly earlier. Sail SSH. So by default, sail SSH will just give you a shell with the www data user logged in. This is basically the user that everything, all the application files and uploads and everything belong to, and it goes directly to your public folder. So here you can run WP user list directly. So you can go run WP plugin, install whatever you want, or activate. So this is useful whenever you want to get into the application. And then sail SSH also has a root flag. You can log in as the root user. Then this gives you access to the host system. Now it's worth noting that the way sail works right now is that the application itself lives inside a Docker container. So as root, you don't have access to WP or MySQL or any of the PHP stuff, and you're not gonna find like nginx configs here in root. But if you do want to get root access inside the container, then you can just docker exec in a container called sail, and the command that you want to execute, and execute bash. And this is how you get root inside the container, and this is where you get access to like all the nginx configs, the SSL certificate, certbot, and like whatever you want. And this is where you would usually install like the additional software that you want, like postfix. And I'll probably touch on postfix and email in general later today. But yeah, so that's sail SSH to get into the container as the Nginx user, as the www user, or sail SSH root to get into the host server as root. That's SSH. Sail WP, which we touched on this a little bit. This is really just a proxy for WP CLI running inside that container. So know that if you are working with in a development environment and you do have WP CLI locally, it's important to know that sail WP is running the commands in production and not on your local environment. So one thing to keep in mind. And sail logs, also one of my favorites. So no logs entries found. There's this weird bug with new droplets. For some reason the syslog thing doesn't run the first time you boot them, but once you do reboot, once you do a reboot, it all kind of fixes itself. So sail logs, still working, still booting. There we go. So yeah, I'm not sure what the bug is. I'm still looking into it. But essentially, I think like some of the, like maybe the syslog daemon isn't running or has to be restarted for some odd reason. But I'll look into it and make sure it's fixed in the near future. But yeah, basically, sail log is just a proxy for the system journal commands, and you can do things like sail logs, or you can do -f to follow the logs. So if I'm refreshing the edit page here, these are the logs that come into Nginx. There are some logs coming into UFW, which is the firewall running on the server, and you can also filter them by, say, Nginx access. So you'll just get the Nginx access logs. You can do Nginx, which is both Nginx access logs and Nginx error logs for something that is not found, I think. Oh, this will probably show up. Yep. So there's an Nginx error log, and you can have PHP, or probably empty right now, but you can have PHP error logs here as well, which you can follow. And this is really useful for like debugging and stuff, although I would not recommend debugging on production, but for small projects, totally fine with it. So that's logs, and like if you need more like granular access to logs, you can always like sell SSH as root, and then run the journal CTL here as root, and all the logs are still going to be in here in the syslog. So you can basically use the same commands. You can do filtering by timestamp and things like that, and I'll probably port some of those features to sail as well, like to be able to quickly give you like not the follow thing, but quickly give you access to the logs for Nginx for the past like 16 minutes or the past 15 minutes. Like I think that would be very useful in production, which is something that journal CTL has, but sail doesn't have right now. So that's logs, and that's essentially it. Like those are probably all the features that we've gone through here. Well, tail admin just opens your browser to WP login. And what else didn't we cover? Sail config. Well, sail config is when you want to set your provider token that you would use for all your sail projects, so that you don't have to put it on the command line every time, which is what I use here for my setup. And there's also sail config email, because when you do sail init, it'll ask you for the email that you want to use for logging in and essentially for the admin of your WordPress instance. So you can put that as well as sail config email. And you can like set it to something here so that you wouldn't have to do it every time you need it. And you can still override it. You can still override it with like email and provider token for a specific project. Yeah, regions, logs, init, restored, we've covered. Rollback covered, sizes covered, SSH covered. Destroy, probably didn't cover destroy. So destroy just deletes your droplet essentially. Not very fancy. But I'm not gonna do that right now because I still need this. And what I want to look at next is, I think, a more complex scenario, I guess, of deploying with Git and GitHub Actions. So let's talk a little bit about that, because sail itself, if you look at here, it doesn't have the Git directory, doesn't have an SVN directory, and basically it's agnostic to whatever source code manager you want to use. Like if you want to use Git, it'll work. If you want to use Subversion or Mercurial or whatever, it'll work with any of them. It doesn't really require or expect any of those things. And some workflows you would want to deploy using a source code management tool, such as Git, especially when you're working in a team. Because when you're working in a team, you don't want people deploying whatever they have on their local machines directly to production. Even if you can quickly roll back, like you want to have sort of like a coordinated, centralized, I'd say, place for releases. And Git and GitHub is probably one of the best tools for that. And Git has a feature called GitHub Actions, which is, in my opinion, it's perfect for deploying WordPress to production with even larger teams. So I'm gonna quickly show you how to set that up with this particular project. So I'm gonna go to github.com, and I'm gonna create a new repository. I'll call it what's the domain name? Saildemo. I'll call it saildemo.com. This is my site. It can be public, it can be private, probably private, although it doesn't really matter. What I'm gonna do is I'll add a readme file, sure. I'll add a git ignore. Is there one for WordPress? Oh, there is one for WordPress, and let's say this is gonna be PPL or GNU, public license v3. So I create the repository, saildemo.com. I'm gonna clone it. So git clone saildemo.com is going to be cloned into a subdirectory. And so since I already have some contents that I want to put in the repo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move saildemo.com.git. So I'm going to move the git directory here. I'm going to move the git ignore file here, and I'm going to move whatever is left. license and readme, and I'm gonna remove the sale demo directory. So this is now my GitHub, or this is now my Git repository. I'm gonna look at that git ignore file and see what it has. Ignore everything in the root, that the WP content directory. Well, I would not necessarily agree with this, because our WordPress files are also in our repository, which means that if a core update broke my site for whatever reason, maybe there's a compatibility problem, I can quickly roll back to an earlier deploy with a different version of WordPress core. WP content, MU plugins, themes. I don't know. This seems a bit weird. Like, this is fine. This I agree with. Not sure why SQLite isn't here. 20 themes. Yeah, I don't know. I think for git ignore, I'll probably use something like this. So we want to ignore all dot files, and this is probably true for not only WordPress but basically any other project you want to host with the Git repository. And WP content uploads, this is what I want to ignore. And that's about it, probably. Well, node modules maybe. And these three. Okay. Now we're gonna add .git ignore. We're gonna git add all of this. Import. I'm gonna git push. So this is all here. Now what we wanna do is so sale has this .sale hidden directory, which basically contains the credentials for our sale application. And if you look inside, you'll see that there's the SSH key. So this is the root key that's used to connect to SSH on our server. There's a config.json file which contains application ID and secret for communicating with the sale API. And like, you don't really want to put these into your GitHub repository, especially if it's public, because those are quite sensitive things. But what you can do, and because we do need them for GitHub to be able to deploy, to communicate with sale using our credentials, what we can do is we can encrypt them with the passphrase, and then have a GitHub action decrypt them when doing the deploy. And we can do this with GPG. If you have this installed on your system, you probably do. So what we're gonna do is a tar archive of the sale directory. We're gonna put this to the standard input, and we are going to encrypt this symmetrically into a .sale, .tar, .gz, .gpg file. And GPG will ask me for a passphrase, so I'll say hello. And now we have a .sale.tar.gz encrypted file, which we can safely push to our GitHub repository. So git add .sale.tar.gz. I do need an F flag because it is in git ignore, because it is a dot file. Git commit, add secrets, git push, Now it is here in GitHub. And now that passphrase we want to store in a GitHub secret. So settings, secrets, new repository secret. Let's call it sale passphrase, and it's gonna sale hello. This is the passphrase that I used to encrypt my file. Add the passphrase, done. Now we're gonna go actions, and we are going to set up a workflow myself. I'm gonna call it deploy. It's gonna be called deploy.yaml. We're gonna delete this, we're gonna delete this, we're gonna push on main. So every time something is pushed to the main branch, we are going to deploy. And the job, we're gonna call it deploy. It is gonna run on Ubuntu latest. Fine, and the steps are going to be uses actions checkout. So this is one of the default GitHub actions to check out the repository, and we are also going to use a custom action that I built called Shannon sale deploy at v1. So this is a GitHub action, and you can go to github.com and then sale deploy to look at what this action does. It's in an action YAML file, and you'll see that the action. I'm not sure why this is here. Probably shouldn't be, but it installs Python. It installs the sale executable from PyPy using pip. And then it reads the sale passphrase, it reads the sale file name, which defaults to sale.tar.gz, which is what we use. And then it decrypts the file using the sale passphrase, and it extracts the archive, and then it basically does sale deploy. And instead of writing all of this, we can just write uses, or sort of like an include of that action, and we can give it some arguments with passphrase, which is going to be secrets.sale passphrase. And that's about it. This is the workflow. This is the workflow, I think. New workflow. Committed to the main branch. And it's going to run immediately. So here I'm gonna git pull just to make sure that I have the workflow in my repository. Let's see how this does. Checkout is going to sale deploy, deploying to production. Oh, the dots here. Updating symlinks, and done. So now, yep, okay, this works as expected, and it's green, so it's a success. This works as expected. So now, instead of running sale deploy here every time I want to do something, what we can do is share the entire repository, and you don't even need to share the .sale directory with your coworkers or colleagues or teammates. If they don't need access to sale, if they don't need to be able to run backups and work with domains and work with the database and production and things like that, you don't necessarily have to share this. You can just share the repository as it is here, and that way they won't have direct access to the repository on or to the server, to the production server. But every time something is pushed to the main branch, so config.php I'm gonna echo break this site again. So this would be probably the 4th time I broke this site. I'm gonna git add, git commit, break, git push. Every time something is pushed to main, an action is gonna run. Hold break. Let's give it a few seconds. No, probably can speed this up by adding caching to like to the installing of Sail. You don't need to install it every time. You don't need to install Python and Sail and all Sail dependencies every time you want to deploy. You just probably cache it and reuse that prior to just running Sail deploy. So it's green, so it should have deployed. Let's check it out. Break this site again. And now if I want to roll, well, if you're working in a team, you'll probably be using something like pull requests, which you can easily revert. I'm not sure you can easily revert a commit here. Probably not. Nope. Yeah, so if you want to revert a commit, well, if it was a pull request, you could just do a reverse pull request, and GitHub has the UI for it to revert a pull request. But if you're just doing commits, you're stuck with doing a git revert here and then pushing that git revert git log. So get the commit hash, git revert, revert break, and push it. Oh, wrong repo. Revert break, and you can see an action is running here. And it should unbreak my site any second. There we go. So yeah, this is GitHub Actions, and you can introduce more stuff here. Like if you have a build process, for example, before deploying, you can run like npm build or gulp or whatever fancy tools you're using to crunch that Sass and that JavaScript. You can put them all here and then deploy, because Sail deploy, again, it is very agnostic to whatever source code manager you're running. So whatever is being written to the file system here, actions, checkout, so whatever is in here, excluding the dot files, Sail deploy does not deploy dot files. It's gonna skip them. But everything here, everything on the file system at this point is just going to be written to production. So if you have an additional step here before deploy, which creates more files on the file system, like the strip folder with compiled and minified CSS or JavaScript or whatever, then whatever is on the file system at that point in time is going to be deployed to production with Sail deploy. So yeah, you can easily do like a build processes here prior to deploying, and they should be deployed after the build. So that's GitHub Actions. Let's see if I have any questions. Like we don't. So okay, that's deploys, and I guess one last thing I wanted to touch on is, well, a couple things. One is local development, because the config file here is going to have your production credentials, right? Database name, user, password. These are going to be your production database credentials. For simplicity, you could set up your local environment using the same database credential, but chances are that you're using something like local by Fly WP engine wheel or whatever they're called these days. And when you do create a new site with local, it's gonna create a new database for you with existing credentials. And you know, other people on your team might have other development environments, development setups, and ideally you wanna accommodate you know, all of them. So there are plenty of different ways around this. I think like the easiest way would be, you know, to do a file exists check over here before doing these defines and say dot local. I'll probably need something like this. Dot local, and then do your define stuff right here for local stuff, and then else have the production credentials. I wonder if I can have the production credentials over here and then the local here, or you can like include, like require like a .local config.php and then have these definitions be inside the .local config. Let's try and do that right now. Require once their name file .local config.php, and then inside the local config.php we're just gonna have these. And then this would be something like, you know, WordPress or whatever. And then this would be the local config. And like even if you make the mistake of adding it to the GitHub repository, Sail will never deploy it because it's a dot file. Sail will never deploy this file to production. So this is one way you can distinguish between local and production. We'll probably also need to define WP environment type, and then WordPress will do fancy things like enable WP debug for you and things like that automatically. You can do this. The default environment type is obviously production. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it would be to have like an export WP environment type equals development in like you know, your dot profile or bashrc or whatever file on your system, and then everything running on your system will inherit the WP environment type environmental variable or environment variable, and then inside WP config you can, you know, if get n WP environment type is equal to development, then you can, you know, you can have your local credentials here, and then your production credentials here. So this would be another way of doing it, slightly more advanced, because you do have, you'll probably need to like log out of your system and log back in for it to take effect, but it's certainly convenient because you only have to do it once, and then the environment type will be set for basically all your WordPress sites locally, unless you choose to like explicitly override it in WP config. Yeah, I guess these are like, there are probably other ways of doing it as well, like checking by host name, or checking by AP, checking by whatever, like tons of other options, but I'd say maybe stick to one of these two, probably be best. And yeah, and then one final thing I wanted to touch on is email. Email is hard, and by default, Sail will not install any SMTP relays or MTAs on your server, and that is actually a good thing, because Sail doesn't know what kind of email setup you are looking for. And also, I think DigitalOcean limits or closes the SMTP ports on a new DigitalOcean account for like 60 days or something. So it will not always work necessarily. And also, it doesn't like, it's kind of like a gamble of what kind of IP address you will get with DigitalOcean on your new droplet. Like, if you're lucky enough, you will get a you know, completely white IP address which has never been used for spam or any other malicious activity, and that's good. And I got a lot of these with DigitalOcean. Most of them are like that. But sometimes you can get a an IP address that has which does have you know, a bad history with spam, with email providers, or with you know, being parts of some large botnets of hacked sites and whatnot. And you might have trouble with email deliverability from that specific IP address. And what I would suggest is actually using a third-party service. Like, if email is very important to your application, and that is true for a lot of cases, like if you're running a simple blog, for example, like I am, I don't really care if my, you know, password reset email ends up in spam. Like, I'll find it because I'm probably the only one receiving email from that site. But if you're running e-commerce, for instance, you really need the emails sent from your site to end up in your customers' inboxes, not spam, not trash, not anywhere else, in their inboxes. And for that, I would highly recommend you use transactional email service, and there are a lot of options out there. I think like the one I use is called Mailgun, and it's free for like for 5,000 emails for 3 months. It's free, but then I think it's only a 1.5k I think emails per month, and you can remain on the free plan without paying extra. And then if you go over that, it's like 80 cents per for an additional 1,000 emails. So for for not huge sites, it'll probably be enough. And what Mailgun gives you is an SMTP relay, and this is really important. Like email MPIs and stuff like that, I think is like, it's okay. Like if you're a developer and you want to fiddle with their APIs, but if you're looking to like send mass emails to your customers, whether they're newsletters or notifications and status updates about their purchases and stuff like that, what you really want is an SMTP relay. And if you are looking at other transactional mail services as well, just make sure they do have an SMTP relay, because the SMTP relay is actually the one big thing that will allow you to set up delivering email very, very, very fast from your server in whatever quantities you want. Because the one thing to remember about APIs is that API is HTTP. So whenever you are invoking like Cldb shell, whenever you are doing like WP mail to then subject, text, and then headers and whatnot, like if this call results in an external HTTP call, then 100 of these in 1 second, they're just gonna bring your site down. They're just gonna lock all of your PHP workers. They're just gonna wait there until the curl request is executed, is finished. And even if it's like super fast, even if it's like a sub-second remote HTTP call, still 100 of those calls scheduled to run at the same time, it's just gonna blow up. It's not gonna work. It's gonna make your site slower. It's gonna hang your entire worker pool until all those even 500 millisecond calls return or are resolved or time out, worst case scenario. So what you really want is an SMTP relay, and the correct, in my opinion, the correct way to set this up would actually be WP Mail should send to a local SMTP relay, and then the local SMTP relay should be configured to send to the remote. Mailgun SMTP, Gmail SMTP, Sendinblue SMTP, whatever. And the important piece of the puzzle here is this local SMTP relay. Because a local SMTP relay gives you a async queue for free of charge. A local SMTP relay will just give you that queue, and it all happens in the background, and you can run as many WP mail calls as you want, and all of them will simply save the email that you want to send into a local queue and return immediately. It's not going to reach out to Mailgun. It's not going to reach out to Gmail. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to write to a file on the local file system and return, making it the most efficient way of sending an email locally. And then it's up to the SMTP relay to then deliver that message to a remote mailgun SMTP server. And if it's down, if it's offline, like if the APIs are offline, you're screwed. Like there has to be a timeout. You have to code in that timeout that will retry to deliver that email, you know, a few minutes from now. But the local SMTP relay will just automatically retry. Like it's all there in Postfix or in whatever other local relay software you're using. It's already done for you, and you just get to use it for free, which is super efficient, and it's all abstracted away from whatever you're doing in WordPress. And whatever you're doing in WordPress is just a WP mail. You're just sending an email. You don't need any plugins. You don't need any additional configuration in WordPress itself. Like, WordPress doesn't have to be responsible for delivering your emails. WordPress is responsible for queuing those emails with the local SMTP agent or with the local relay. And I mean, there are plenty of tutorials, and one of them is on DigitalOcean, I think, like postfix, local, relay, DigitalOcean. How to install and configure postfix is a send-only SMTP server. On that site, no, this is not it. You can use postfix to actually do the delivery from your from the local relay as well. And as I said, it will work for small sites. And if you get a clean IP address, it'll work, and it's quite efficient and fast as well. But if you are going to use something like a third-party service, you will need, like, you can probably type mailgun. It has to be set up like in satellite mode or something. Yeah, satellite system mode. Yeah, so this is the tutorial that you can use to set up postfix. It's quite simple. You just need to create like a credentials file and put the mailgun username and password into the credentials file, and then you put the SMTP server. I think they also go into the credentials file. Yeah, you put this SMTP server here, and yeah, and I actually tested this out with a different project I had, and it works really well. And you still get access to the same, because postfix will keep the same mail logs in syslog on your server, so you can still see like whatever happened to the mail that was queued. Like, was it delivered to Mailgun? And then if it was, you can log into Mailgun and look at the logs there of whatever happened with that email. Did it bounce? Did it you know, was it rejected for whatever reason, or was it malformed or whatever? So yeah, super efficient. And I'm actually thinking of bundling some of the postfix installation and configuration commands into Sail, so that you can immediately set up a postfix, either a full full relay with delivery, or a relay with delivery to a third-party service like Mailgun. So thinking a bit about that as well. But yeah, super important if you do have especially a WooCommerce or any e-commerce site, really. Yeah, so that's Mail. Again, by default, Sail does not ship with postfix or any kind of email. So if you do try and WP mail something from your WordPress instance, it will very likely fail. But again, you can install and configure postfix for all your email needs. Or like if you do have a simple site and you don't want to fiddle with postfix, you can go with like an SMTP plugin for WordPress. It's not going to be very efficient. It's probably going to slow down your site during email delivery, or lock up your workers if it does it on like background Chrome requests or things like that. But at least it'll get your mail delivered. And yeah, so that's Sailed. And feel free to go to sailed.io if you want to learn more about getting started with Sail. Again, a lot of these things we covered today, more than these things we actually covered today. But yeah, and so sail.io for the main Sail homepage, and then you'll find a documentation link, which is a link to the GitHub repository. If you want to fiddle with the code, feel free to look at any issues, at any pull requests that you might have. Install instructions are here. Again, you can do it with Homebrew. Easiest way on Mac OS and Linux and Windows through the Linux subsystem. And if you do use PyPy, you can install Sail using PyPy. You can install it from source if you'd like, especially if you want to maybe contribute something to Sail. So yeah, all the documentation's here. Everything is up to date. If you are migrating or if you're looking to migrate an existing project to Sail, there are some tips here. Also in the README, it's called Migrating Existing Projects to Sail. So make sure you check that out. Very, very useful. And yeah, we do have a Slack workspace. So if you're stuck with Sail, if something is not working, if you're not sure how to integrate Sail into your workflow, just join our Slack community and ask a whale. Happy to help you out. Yeah, and thanks for joining the live stream as always. Again, sail.io for the Sail project, which is available on GitHub.